Hi, Gregory Klump here, Chief Economist with the Canadian Real Estate Association, with more news on national housing activity over multiple listing service systems of Canadian real estate boards for January of 2012. Your local realtor can fill you in about what's going on in your housing market locally, where trends may differ from national ones. That said, let's take a look at the national housing results, starting with sales activity. On a seasonally adjusted basis, that is, after netting out normal seasonal factors, Canadian home sales pulled back in January, falling 4.5% from December. This marks the first monthly decline in national sales activity since August 2011 and the biggest monthly decline since July of 2010. The monthly decline reversed a string of monthly increases over the closing months of last year and returned national activity to where it stood at the end of the third quarter of 2011. Activity was down in over half of local markets in January from the previous month, led by declines in Greater Toronto and Montreal, but demand also softened in a number of other major urban centres. Looking at actual, that is, not seasonally adjusted national sales activity, it came in 4% above year-ago levels in January, marking the smallest year-over-year increase since last May. As was the case in a number of months last year, actual sales in January of 2012 stood close to the 5- and 10-year averages for the month. Having looked at the demand side of the national housing market equation, let's take a look at supply and market balance. Seasonally adjusted new listings in January edged down 1.4% on a month-over-month basis after having risen 2.9% in December. Since sales fell by more than new listings in January, the national housing market shifted back towards the midpoint of balanced territory. That reversed the recent tightening trend we saw toward the end of 2011. The national sales to new listings ratio, a measure of market balance, stood at 53.8% in January, which is down from 55.5% in December and 55.4% in November. Based on a sales to new listings ratio of between 40 and 60% of local markets were balanced in January. Compared to December, there were fewer buyers and sellers markets and a greater number of balanced markets. Another important measure of housing market balance is the number of months of inventory, which represents the number of months it takes to sell current inventories at the current rate of sales activity. It stood at 6 months at the end of January on a national basis, and that's up from 5.7 months in December of 2011, and it returned the number of months of inventory to where it stood in October of 2011. And lastly, let's take a look at average price. The actual, that is, not seasonally adjusted national average price for homes sold in January of 2012 was almost $348,200, representing an increase of 1.2% from its year-ago level. This ranks among the smallest increases since late 2010. On a seasonally adjusted basis, the national average home price rose 1.6% on a month-over-month basis, marking a rebound from a similar decline in December. This pattern mirrors the one playing out in the newly launched MLS Home Price Index, published in early February. As I mentioned last time, year-over-year comparisons for national average price are likely to become volatile in the months ahead and may turn negative due to what happened in the first half of 2011 in Vancouver. At that time, high-end home sales in Vancouver's priciest neighborhoods surged to all-time record levels, which skewed the national average price upward considerably at that time. A replay of this phenomenon is not expected this year, so comparisons of the national average price to year-ago levels over the coming months will reflect an upwardly skewed base effect. For this reason, year-over-year comparisons should be kept in perspective. In the meantime, developments in the MLS Home Price Index will provide important guidance on price trends, since it is not affected by the problem of compositional shifts in the mix of sales activity the way that average price is. I'll be back soon with CREW's revised and extended forecast for home sales activity and average price, so stay tuned.